Demand for Angus genetics is on the rise, especially in places like Australia, where the breed is becoming increasingly important. We discuss the latest from Down Under with Angus Australia CEO Peter Parnell.
The cattle industry in Australia at the moment is actually quite positive. We've had a number of good years now in most of the cattle producing areas, good years of rainfall, which for Australia is quite unique really. Australia is a land of extremes, as I'm sure you know, and we have a lot of droughts, and we went through a particularly bad period up until about 3 years ago where large parts of the cattle producing areas in Australia are under drought, and during that time there was a big reduction in cattle numbers, particularly in the cow-calf sector. But over the last couple of years, certainly the trends have been increasing cow-calf numbers, and that's been very positive for bull breeders in the seed stock sector, and particularly for Angus. So our Angus seed stock breeders have benefited from that increased cow numbers and increased demand for bulls. Last year we had record average prices for Angus bulls. And probably more importantly, very high clearance rates. So most bull breeders were in a fortunate position where they sold all of their bulls and made higher averages than what they'd ever made before. We're also very focused on genetic improvement and enhancement of the breed, as American Angus is. Australian Angus breeders account for well over half of the performance recording that occurs in Australia, and traditionally the breed in Australia has been very focused on performance-based selection, again following, I guess, the lead of American Angus. Genomics has always offered a lot of promise for us, and I think we're seeing that gradually we are actually starting to realise what the benefits of genomics can provide for us, particularly if we look at the examples set by the dairy industry, but also I have to say from an Australian Angus perspective, seeing the levels of adoption of the genomics technology in American Angus, I think shows us what can be achieved, and there's a lot of other programs that are trying to capture that value as well. So we're very mindful of the need to try and capture as much of the value of Angus for Angus breeders and breeders of Angus cattle. So we're certainly working in that space as well quite extensively.
Coming up next, a small-time hamburger joint has what it takes to attract a few big-name visitors and thousands of repeat customers.